In a dark and decaying Los Angeles of the 80s, an ancient pact is broken, and Dracula himself rises from the ashes to reclaim what is his. But this time, his power will be tested by an insatiable desire and secrets that challenge even death itself. Today, we dive into a film that few know about, but carries a dark and intriguing atmosphere worthy of the classic horror films of the 80s. Dracula, Blood Pact, 1988. End of Chapter 1. In this story, the legend of the most iconic vampire of all time takes on a new perspective, blending revenge, seduction, and a brutal clash against immortality itself. Get ready to uncover the mysteries behind a production that mixes horror and drama in a unique and daring narrative. By watching this video until the end, you will discover surprising details about Blood Pact, a film forgotten by time, as well as explore curiosities and analyze how this version of Dracula differs from the more well-known adaptations. Amidst the shadows of the night, Los Angeles awakens to a new reality. A city that never sleeps, but now seems trapped under a dark and ancient spell. The decadent glamour of neon-lit buildings contrasts with the thick darkness that gathers in narrow alleys and deserted streets. The presence of something old and terrible seems to pulse beneath the city's vibrant surface, as if the metropolis itself has become a nocturnal creature waiting for its prey. At the heart of this urban labyrinth, a figure moves silently. Vanessa, a woman of enigmatic elegance and eyes that carry centuries of pain, walks unhurriedly, as if time were a trivial concept. Her regal posture and flowing black dress make her appear as a lost queen amid modern chaos. Each step echoes like an ancient whisper, and the few who cross her path feel an inexplicable shiver, as if standing before an entity that does not belong to that time or place. The smoky bars are her temporary refuge, shelters where muffled music and forced laughter fail to mask the melancholy that hangs in the air. Vanessa watches everything with a piercing gaze, analyzing lost souls and empty bodies seeking to anesthetize their loneliness with generous doses of alcohol. She senses their presence, the hidden predators prowling the alleys, but she does not fear them. After all, nothing that wanders through the night is more lethal than she herself. The cold moonlight illuminates the towering skyscrapers, while shadows dance on graffiti-covered walls. Vanessa knows something is different that night, a dark omen that has followed her since dusk. Her quest has no end, for there is a destiny that must be fulfilled, and a blood oath that cannot be broken. The city may pulse with life and ambition, but in the dark corridor she passes through, death walks by her side, and no one escapes unscathed. At every corner, signs of the past emerge like scars on Los Angeles' skin-forgotten memories she tries to reclaim. Vanessa is not just a mere woman, she is an entity in search of answers, an ancient force defying time and confronting her own pain in a silent struggle against eternity. The city may try to forget her, but her presence has already blended into the concrete, the whispers of the wind, and the scent of fresh blood that permeates the night. Her soul is marked by a pact that brought her both power and perdition. She carries the burden of a love that transcends time, a love that condemned her to an eternity without solace. The memory of the man who swore never to abandon her is both her strength and her curse. Deep within her gaze lies a mixture of pain and hatred, a duality that keeps her alive as she hunts down those who dared to betray their promise. The city breathes uneasily in her presence. Vanessa is like a living shadow, moving without leaving visible traces. Yet the trail of death and fear denounces her passing. In damp alleys and dimly lit corners, whispers about a deadly woman echo among nocturnal dwellers. Some consider her an urban legend, while others are certain that crossing her path means certain death. Despite her apparent coldness, Vanessa has not forgotten who she once was. Sometimes, lost in thought, she watches the horizon with a melancholy that cuts through her rigid posture. She remembers ancient times, lavish halls and dances beneath shimmering chandeliers, when her existence held purpose and passion. But now, all that remains is the relentless quest for vengeance, a vengeance that consumes her as much as the thirst for blood that never subsides. Her goal is not merely survival, but the restoration of what was taken from her, her master, her lover, her entire world. For that, she is willing to destroy anyone who stands in her way, breaking alliances and crushing hopes without hesitation. In her dark quest, Vanessa is not just a blood widow, but an immortal spirit of vengeance, whose repressed emotions erupt in brutal and ruthless attacks. The city, oblivious to her suffering, continues to live and breathe. But those who fall under her cold gaze quickly understand that there is no escape. Death walks by her side, silent, lethal, and relentless. Vanessa is a symbol of the duality between love and hatred, between power and pain. A queen without a throne, a lover without solace, who continues her journey through the darkness until the blood pact is finally avenged. At the heart of the darkness surrounding Vanessa lies a powerful and sinister bond that transcends death itself, a blood pact sealed centuries ago with Dracula, her master and lover. It is not just a promise of loyalty, but an invisible chain that binds her to a cruel and unchangeable fate. The blood that runs through her veins does not bring life, but eternal condemnation. From the moment she accepted the pact, Vanessa lost not only mortality, but also the freedom to move on. This pact is more than just an act of union. It is a fusion of souls that connects them through time and space. Vanessa knows that as long as Dracula remains asleep in his profane tomb, she will be doomed to wander aimlessly, tormented by the absence of the only being capable of understanding her pain. The bond that once symbolized love and power has now become a crushing burden, corroding her essence with each passing night. The modern city surrounding her seems oblivious to her inner battle, indifferent to the pain consuming her from within. Amid the urban chaos and the blinding lights of neon signs, Vanessa moves like a shadow, her cold and vigilant eyes searching for any clue that might lead her back to her master. With every new trail she follows, she faces beings as cursed as she is, creatures that defy her quest and wish to extinguish her last hope. But her determination is fierce, and her devastated soul refuses to succumb without a fight. For Vanessa, bringing Dracula back means restoring the shattered balance and reclaiming control over her own destiny. Even if it means shedding innocent blood and defying ancient forces, she is willing to make any sacrifice. Deep within her dark soul, she knows that redemption does not lie in escaping the curse, but in embracing it until the pain transforms into absolute power. With each step taken in her search for answers, the truth unfolds like a broken mirror, fragmented, brutal, and cruel. The blood pact is not just a promise of eternal love, but also a chain that traps her essence in a macabre dance between life and death. Vanessa does not seek mere vengeance. She wants to recover what was stolen from her. Her own identity, lost alongside Dracula's fall. And as the night drags on, her presence continues to inspire fear and fascination. The city does not understand the extent of the curse that looms over it, but it feels the grim weight of an immortal huntress who will not give up until darkness reigns once more. Vanessa does not fear death, for she has already been condemned to live eternally. What she truly fears is the empty eternity without her master to guide her and the thought of losing what little remains of her humanity. The night was laden with an unusual silence. The biting wind whispered through the dry leaves, and the sleeping village remained unaware of the hidden presence moving through the shadows. Vanessa walked with precise steps, her red eyes reflecting the despair consuming her soul. Immortality pulsed through her veins like a curse, bringing with it an endless cycle of hunger and regret. Starved for weeks, the pain of thirst gnawed at her thoughts, scrambling any trace of reason. The scent of living flesh invaded her nostrils, drawing her like a magnet toward a man staggering through the alleys, drunk and carefree. Vanessa approached silently, her movements as smooth as a shadow. In one swift, precise motion, she wrapped her arm around the man's neck with inhuman strength and pierced his skin with her sharp teeth. The hot blood burst into her mouth, igniting her throat with brutal, desperate pleasure. The man's life slipped away amid muffled groans and futile struggles. When the body finally succumbed to death, Vanessa released it, letting it fall heavily to the ground. She wiped her lips with the back of her hand, but the feeling of relief lasted only a moment before guilt surged with overwhelming force. The weight of another extinguished life became a new scar on her already wounded and corrupted soul. She knew that the curse was not just about immortality. It was the uncontrollable thirst dragging a trail of destruction in its wake. Aimlessly, she found refuge in the old abandoned chapel, where she often rested on nights of torment. There, amid rubble and forgotten symbols, she tried to preserve the fragments of a human existence long lost. The moral pain gnawed at her innermost being, confronting her with memories that stubbornly survived the passage of time and the weight of eternity. Reflections of a life once pure and filled with hope now lay suffocated by the darkness that had consumed her. On that night, the unusual quiet carried a silent warning. She felt watched, as if the very night itself observed her with cold and vigilant eyes. Driven by a dark impulse, she rose and gazed at the path beyond the entrance, expecting to see a familiar face or a hint of danger. She sensed the presence of something as ancient as herself, a force that refused to fully reveal itself. Vanessa knew she was not alone. Something about the intensity of that encounter made her recall the pact that bound her soul to darkness. It was a cruel and cold reminder that the hunger would never cease, and the pain would never fade away. Each soul taken was a scar carved into her essence, reinforcing the certainty that redemption was an empty promise. Isolated in the forgotten chapel, she felt guilt weighing down like a cold and suffocating mantle as the dawn approached without the hope of relief. Hunger, rage, and despair were all that remained. Eternity had condemned her to an existence of endless cycles of guilt and fleeting satisfaction. And as silence once again dominated the night, Vanessa understood that the true curse was not the insatiable thirst, but the certainty that she could never escape what she had become. Vanessa was an imposing figure, marked by a supernatural beauty and an air of melancholy that never left her. Her silent footsteps crossed ancient halls, and the long corridors seemed to mirror the coldness of her gaze. Born in a distant time, her heart had known both love and loss, but cruel fate had condemned her to wander eternally without ever finding peace. The transformation happened on a freezing night when the promise of a quiet life was brutally shattered. Immortality was imposed upon her without choice, and since then, Vanessa had carried the weight of an empty existence, filled only with echoes of memories that insisted on tormenting her. The pain of losing a great love was a wound that never healed, a constant reminder of the fragility that lay hidden beneath her imposing facade. Despite her predatory nature, Vanessa avoided unnecessary confrontations. Her self-imposed solitude was an attempt to preserve what remained of her humanity. Yet, on particularly silent nights, the desire for revenge consumed her like a slow poison. The one responsible for her curse still wandered the world, indifferent to the suffering he had caused, and she harbored a deep, unchanging hatred. Immortality, however, was not merely a burden. There was a restlessness in her soul, a yearning for meaning that drove her to explore ancient secrets and uncover long-forgotten mysteries. Vanessa was both a guardian of forbidden knowledge and a figure feared by those who knew her story. Although her enemies deemed her ruthless, there was a silent purpose in her actions, as if each move was part of a complex and carefully crafted plan. Time did not steal her beauty, but it left invisible marks on her soul. With each new cycle, Vanessa felt the pain grow heavier, as if her essence were wearing down. The revenge that once seemed essential now mingled with a bitter acceptance of her condition. Shadows had become her constant companions, and the night her refuge. Amidst this dark existence, melancholy remained her only faithful companion. Vanessa understood that redemption might never come, but that did not stop her from continuing her relentless search for answers that could set her free. She was more than just a predator, a broken soul trapped in a cycle of pain and longing, trying to reclaim the last remnants of who she once was. Vanessa was a creature marked by eternity and sorrow. In a distant era, her heart pulsed with passion and devotion, tied to the man who turned her life into a dark tale of blood and vengeance. She never wanted immortality, but darkness took her when Dracula chose her as his companion, sealing her fate with an accursed pact. The Blood Pact was much more than a union of bodies and souls. It was a curse that condemned her to an existence of torment and loss. While Dracula dominated with his powerful and imposing presence, Vanessa remained in the shadows, learning the secrets of eternity and enduring the burden of a life interrupted by death and forced rebirth. When Dracula was destroyed, Vanessa felt the searing pain of rupture. The connection that bound them disappeared, leaving her adrift in a modern and cruel world. In his absence, she experienced overwhelming loneliness and the pain of betrayal intertwined with an insatiable need for revenge. For decades, she sought answers, crossing continents and witnessing humanity's progress while remaining untouched by the passage of time. In Los Angeles, a grimy and vibrant city, Vanessa found the reflection of her own tormented soul. The red lights and suffocating shadows echoed the decay she felt inside. The city had become her new domain, but there was no peace. Each night served as a reminder of her weakness and her inability to overcome the past. The Blood Pact did not free her from pain. On the contrary, immortality forced her to relive every moment of loss and betrayal. Yet, her quest for justice never ceased. Vanessa knew there were ancient enemies who survived in secrecy, shielded by legends that concealed them. Vengeance would be Dracula's final gift to her, a way to redeem her corrupted soul and give meaning to the existence he imposed on her. But revenge was a double-edged sword. The closer she got to her targets, the more she realized her thirst for blood was rooted in a desperate need to fill the void left by her lost lover. Vanessa understood that she could not escape her predatory nature, but a part of her longed for a second chance, a glimpse of redemption that might never come. Thus, she continued, wandering through the alleys and crossing paths with those who dared challenge her. The city might be her prison, but it was also the perfect battleground to confront her ghosts. The blood pact that bound her to Dracula turned her life into a cycle of pain and power, and Vanessa knew that her legacy would be defined not by eternity itself, but by the strength of her vengeance. Dracula Blood Pact is a hidden gem of 80s horror cinema, deserving to be rediscovered by those who appreciate a bold and brutal take on the vampire myth. Vanessa, masterfully portrayed by Sylvia Crystal, remains an enigmatic and fascinating figure, revealing the darkest and most vulnerable side of immortality. Christopher Coppola's daring direction immerses us in a dense and disturbing atmosphere where violence and pain walk hand in hand. If you're a fan of vampire stories and seek a unique experience, you cannot miss this film. It reminds us that behind every legend lies a legacy of pain and passion that never fades, even across centuries. Dracula Blood Pact is more than just an adaptation. It's a plunge into the darkness of the soul and the insatiable thirst for redemption and revenge. Did you enjoy the video? Then give it a like, share it with your friends, and subscribe to the channel to not miss more dark and intriguing content like this. Leave your thoughts down below about Dracula's widow and whether you knew about this intense and dark version of the legend. See you in the next video, and remember, shadows always hold secrets we could never imagine.